All right, people, welcome back. Save America, vote Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is right again on the Syria Douma false flag attack. People like Susan Sarandon, Pamela Anderson, and my buddy Roger Waters, who I got my t-shirt on here today for Pink Floyd, are all leading questions over why the mainstream media is ignoring a leaked OPCW report contradicting the claim that Syrian President Bashar Assad carried out a chemical weapons attack in Douma. Now, if you remember, Tulsi Gabbard said, hey, can we just wait? Can we wait for an independent investigation into what happened here? Nope. See, by taking the position, this is a weird thing that's happening right now. By taking the position of real intelligence gathering, saying, you know what, we need to gather intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard has become basically a Russian asset by saying that we just want to wait for the facts to come in and that we're not just going to believe the intelligence that we're being fed by deep state assets or deep state dark shadowy people who are basically running our government. They're running our government right now. Donald Trump, he was actually, for a little while, I think he might have been fighting the deep state. And then he decided if you can't beat them, join them. So I feel as though Trump has let go of the steering wheel. That was my theory. It could be worse than that. A lot of people believe that, he didn't want to be president, and he didn't know really who to trust and what to do, so he's relying on all of the old favorites, and he thinks that these people are going to get him reelected. Well, that's a fatal error, and even though I don't favor impeachment over this fake Russian collusion hoax, Donald Trump right now, because of just sheer incompetence and somebody who has been co-opted, really doesn't deserve to be commander-in-chief because he's not behaving like a commander-in-chief. He's just allowing these people to run the show. So I think it's a legitimate thing, though, to ask questions, especially prior to launching a Tomahawk missile attack. 50-plus missiles are going into Syria, and you got Brian Williams doing his Leonard Cohen routine on MSNBC. Lion Brian Williams, okay. Anyway, Susan Sarandon says, this is really important. Why aren't we talking about it? We may have just discovered a major piece of the puzzle explaining how seemingly independent international organizations help deceive us into consenting to wars and regime change interventionism around the world. Wouldn't you want to be safe here? Then sorry. Wouldn't you want to know all the facts before you actually start lobbing missiles around? Now, I'm under the impression, or at least this is what I believe, is I don't think we should be messing around in Syria at all. Even if these were chemical attacks, which a lot of people from the get-go didn't believe it. It's not our... Why is it our job? There are vicious atrocities all over the world, and we don't prevent them. In fact, in some cases, we enable, like in Yemen. And Tulsi Gabbard has been very outspoken about our relationship with Saudi Arabia, which people like Leland Vittert on Fox think that, hey, they've been cracking down on that Wahhabism. Yeah, they've really reined it in. Gives no evidence, no support of that. That's his comeback. And Tulsi Gabbard's like, well, what are you talking about? Of course, she couldn't get a word in edgewise because he was going, ma'am, 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 during the interview. Because that's the way you conduct an interview. You use your voice to interrupt here and there. You make snarky little noises while Tulsi is explaining her position. And you're making those snarky noises because you're not hearing the neocon normal talking points that you're accustomed to hearing on your channel. All right, and all of these channels are obviously funded by oligarchs or people who are, part of large corporations and so forth, or own large corporations. We need news media that's not like run by Amazon.com. We just do. And it would be cool if somebody could take all the videos here on YouTube, right, the ones that I do and others do, and put them on a 24-hour loop and make it a channel. Just make it a live stream. All right, something like that. So if somebody knows how to do that, somebody said it would be cool if your videos could be on a TV channel and then just run at different hours of the day. You could take the best of Dave. You could take the best of, Kim Iverson. Kim, by the way, has an awesome video about this whole situation, this false flag attack, because that's what it is. And you just run these videos, and people would have a stream of alternate information. You give them a link, one link to a channel on YouTube. And if they got like a Roku device, or if they've got something that allows them to stream, they could actually watch us rather than the propaganda they're getting. And obviously I'm reading a report from RT America, so yes, I plead guilty to being a Russian bot, because I just want to admit it ahead of time here during this video. I know it's not going to help my case for folks running ads before, because I might be funding Vladimir Putin somehow, even though Vlad has yet to call or offer me a check, or, supposedly some Russians sent Tulsi Gabbard some money, and that constitutes, again, anybody can send anybody money. All right, if they hear somebody speaking, and by the way, who's to say it's bad that the Russians are legally supporting a candidate for president because they believe that the countries ought to get along? Think of this. And it's mind-blowing that most of the Democratic Party has now done a backflip away from cooperation and into beating war drums. Absolutely amazing. That's why supporting Tulsi Gabbard is such an important endeavor right now. Because if you're not supporting Tulsi, or Bernie to some extent, but mostly Tulsi, if you're not supporting Tulsi, then you really are just supporting the status quo, and nothing's going to change. You're just going to change the placeholder. Donald Trump right now is a co-opted, minimized figure who came in on the wave of less intervention. I mean, somebody played a couple of clips the other day of him speaking at rallies when he was running for president, and it was clear, hey, why are we involved in these countries? And Trump has a very sort of blunt, brash way of framing things, and he said, we don't even know who these countries are. And he's correct. Most Americans don't know where Douma is. We know that, presidential candidate Gary Johnson didn't know where Aleppo was, or is. So people are more concerned, by the way, I get that. And Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, they talk about healthcare, they talk about jobs, they talk about education, they talk about all your major domestic, what I call big ticket items. But really, if we continue to fund this war state, and we shoot before asking questions, we drop missiles before asking questions, we waste millions of dollars in one airstrike, and we don't ask questions, and we continue along this pattern, there is no money. There literally isn't money for these other programs. There just isn't. And I know, as some progressives are always like, well, you never ask about, how much the war is costing. And it's true. But the point is we're spending so much money on war that we don't have enough money for just like cleaning up, as Jimmy Dore says, like $100 billion, you could probably solve homelessness, and you could give people, decent education. 100 billion, and you'd have money left over. I mean, he's got the stats broken out, but he makes some really good points. It's really what our priorities are. And do we want a war-based economy, or do we want a people-based economy? Pretty simple. I know that there are some, especially on the right, but a few on the left, who agree that, we need to be on the world stage, and we need to intervene, and we need to be the global police and the global superpower and steer these countries toward democracy. Nope. It's not our business. So you're not following what the founders envisioned. And I know the founders have their problems as far as slavery, and I've stated over and over again, I'm not agreeing with that portion of what they did at the time, but I do agree that their foreign policy was spot on. And we need to get back to that. Because right now we're a country that is just thirsty. If it's not Iran, it's Syria, it's Afghanistan, it could be Iraq. I mean, all the places, Libya, Venezuela. We need to stop, folks. Tulsi Gabbard is the only candidate running who has made this the crowning jewel of her entire platform. So, anyway, I find this very interesting that the attack, as many thought, was most likely a hoax, and there was no evidence on the ground, but yet our media ran with it, and unfortunately President Trump decided to call their fake news and launch some missiles to make his daughter feel better, and probably his son-in-law, and it's just a tragedy that we did this and there's no accountability for it. Tulsi Gabbard is the only one that would bring accountability to our foreign policy. She's the only one. I don't know about Bernie. Bernie might, but I know Tulsi definitely will. All right, so I'm done. I will be back soon, so stay tuned.